The main sports event ongoing right now on the continent of Africa is the 2025 African Cup of Nations. Of course, you know it is the 35th edition of the competition, and we have now moved from the round of group stages to the round of 16. I'll start with you, Coach. Coach Daniel, you've watched the competition in the last few days that has entered into the quarter-final stage. Can I have your appraisal of the competition from day one as we move into the group games this weekend?
Well, the beauty of the Afcon is, yes, it's for Africa.
What of China? Coach, I think you have to hold on there. Let's see whether we can establish good contact with you, Coach. We're having a little bit of network issues there, and as soon as we are clear up with Coach, we'll get back to him, getting his view about it. We should be checking. Do we have China Chiro online with us now? China, are you there? Okay. If we don't have China, we will see what the network is like with Wisdom. Wisdom is, of course, a sports analyst joining us from Umoya. Wisdom, the African Cup of Nations is into the group, is into the round of 16 after matches played at the group stages. Can I have your overview of what you have seen so far in 6 cities in Morocco?
Thank you very much. I think it's been a fantastic outing by any stretch of your imagination. As a football enthusiast, an analyst, a spectator, a pundit, whichever category one belongs, we have seen the finest of football on display across the 24 nations that participated so far in the competition, albeit now narrowed to 16 teams because others who weren't able to match the specific metrics to progress to the next round have been shown packing. In terms of industry, we've seen lots of goals here and there, draws, of course, explaining how competitive African football has become, no longer days where teams are walloped and decimated on the field of play. We've seen fantastic outings from Nigeria and Algeria, the only two teams to have maintained 100% record in the competition. The host nation, Morocco, have equally shown promise. They have been under pressure because they are the host of the competition with an avalanche of talents that apply their trade both in the local league and in Europe. They're expected to go on to challenge for the title. Cameroon, Ivory Coast, in fact the big guns. If we look at the 16 teams that have gotten to the round of 16, you would realize that 11 of them are former champions, which is a testament to a level of consistency in terms of the big wigs in terms of African football. So it's exciting for the number of matches we have seen, and I think the stakes can get higher. As we get into the round of 16, we expect more of industry. Controversy have actually been in short supply, especially from the angle of the referee. The optics have been fine so far, and we expect more of the same when we get to a region of the competition where there is no margin for error.
Okay, thank you very much, Wisdom, for your overview. Wisdom, I think you got the spot on there. Let's see. Do we have contact back with Coach Hakim? Well, I think we're still having a little bit of network issues. We'll have to join Coach Dan Kaki any moment soon. But Mike is here. Mike, looking at the African Cup of Nations, like we already established, some teams have gone home. 24 teams started the competition, and now we only have 16, meaning that about 8 teams have already left Morocco, wherever they were based. But in Morocco, they should have arrived back home now after the conclusion of group games. For me, countries like Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and Botswana, not getting a win in the course of 3 matches played at the competition. Does that speak well of the level of football across the continent?
Well, I think football is actually evolving. Football is developing right here in Africa. That is what it simply means. For the fact that the likes of Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and the rest have been, sent packing out of the competition, it simply tells you how active other countries have, of course, evolved over the course of the year. Because even Gabon literally should have come out of their group, but then they were beaten by, of course, Mozambique, which for me was the height of it all, which their government actually said in their own time that it was such a disastrous outing, and that is why the government had to disband, the team out there. So for me, I think for the 8 teams that have been sent packing, I think they just need to go back, try harder again. Literally, most of these 8 teams.
No, not completely, because we know that some teams, they are not already actually 8 that have sent packing. We know some teams that came 3rd place position. Yeah. They have moved in.
Yeah. Some came in 3rd place position, but some of them just, of course, maybe you say more like the best losers from some of those, teams that were supposed to go out, but because of the fact that they were the best losers, they were given that, soft landing, and that is why they are still in there. But then, generally, I think some of these teams that have left, not that they did not try their best, it's just that their best weren't good enough.
Okay, the best of the 8 teams weren't good enough, and they are out of the African Cup of Nations ongoing in Morocco. 16 are there at the end of this weekend. In fact, in the next 48 hours after the weekend, we will see which of the teams are remaining, which 8 will remain and move into the quarterfinal stage of the competition. Do we have China back with us? Well, we're still having to establish contact. Coach, are you there? China, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Oh, China, nice to have you. And the focus this weekend is the African Cup of Nations. Beyond that, I think I can take you on maybe 1 or 2 perspectives of sports in the year 2025 and 2026. But first, since we are already on the African Cup of Nations, let's get going. Gabon disbanded. The entire national team has been disbanded. The technical crew, support staff, players have been sent packing by the government of Gabon on the stress that they lost all the 3 of their fixtures at the ongoing African Cup of Nations. Somehow, captain of the side, Aubameyang, is been sidetracked from that ban. You are aware that he left Morocco for his club side in France for treatment. But some officials of the Gabonese Football Federation are in quarrel with that because they believe that he is hale and hearty and shouldn't have left the team. But overall, it looks like FIFA hammer is dangling on the head of the Gabonese Football Federation. Will the hammer come down, or it will be somehow left hanging?
Why would FIFA do? No, they didn't do anything wrong. They disbanded the national team, which
government disbanded.
Yes, I mean, it's a national team. They didn't touch a duly elected FA. That's a different matter. If a duly elected FA or federation was disbanded, then FIFA would come in. It's a national team. You can do what you want with your national team. But I thought they would have been that brazen. What they should have done was simply sack their coach, check what he does, and start the process of rebuilding by calling up fresh players or not inviting the current players. But see that when an African country says we are disbanded, it sounds so 17 and 80s. It sounds so military. But I don't think there'll be a farmer for that, for disbanding the national team. No, it's a country's prerogative. Who do you want to invite to a national team or not? So I won't join that school of thought that people will hammer them for anything like that.
Okay, quickly, Chad, I think you can answer the next question because we've had 1 or 2 of our analysts on this program give their overview of the Nations Cup that is into the round of 16. So far, so good for you?
Yeah, so far so good. It's the Afcon. When you have so many countries, more countries than normal, you will expect to see, as we say, the boys from the men at the end of this stage. We are expecting Gabon to be knocked out this early. I wasn't. We are expecting Equatorial Guinea to be knocked out this early. I wasn't also. But it happens when maybe you don't prepare right, or maybe you're just not lucky. But now we're in the knockout stage and it's business. This is the business end of the Afcon. One mistake and you're out. You know, if you blink, you're out. I think the game will get more interesting, more competitive, and more exciting to watch. So I agree, so far so good.
Well, quickly, before I go to Wisdom on the next question, China, video assistant referee seems to have been controversial so far as compared to the last Nations Cup where it was excellent.
I agree that the last Nations Cup was excellent, very excellent. I also agree that VAR was very consistent in last Nations Cup as compared to what we see in England every week. For this Afcon, I wouldn't say they've done that badly, but I would also agree that they may not have met the height of the last Afcon. And why that is happening, I can't place my finger on it. I would think that CAF will choose to have that high standard kept, especially when the last Afcon was watched worldwide, and commentators all over the world agreed that they are seeing more consistent decisions at the Afcon than even in England. But I wouldn't say they've done badly. I'll just say they probably not reached the height of last Afcon.
Okay, let me get to Wisdom all the way from Omoyana. Wisdom, looking at the Nations Cup, it boils down to the players on the pitch. We've seen group games all concluded. Have you seen any player that or players that you need to watch out for in the round of 16 and maybe subsequently to the final of this competition across the 24, at least across the 16 countries that are still left in the competition? Maybe one or two players that have their team have crashed out, but they seem to have made an impact on you.
Undoubtedly, while I must commend the players for the character they've shown, it's not easy. Of course, it's the dream of every player from a burgeoning stage that they would want to play at Africa's biggest stage possible, which is the Africa Cup of Nations. And whereas there are a couple of players who have been exceptional for their teams, I would rather stay with the teams that are already through to the round of 16. And they say charity begins at home. If I have to start with the Super Eagles of Nigeria, I must commend Ademola Lookman. His shortlisting in the best 11 after the conclusion of the Africa Cup of Nations group stage is a testament to his contribution, growing reputation, and decisive capacity in the team. 2 goals, 2 assists. It shows that he's quite a player to watch. He's shown that on different occasions. For his club, for his country, he's been consistent, except the fact that issues of transfer kind of reduced his impact during the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Apart from him, we have to equally commend the likes of Alex Iwobi. He has come in for huge criticism, hasn't he, for the national team on different occasions, especially when people look at him from the aspect of being a defensive midfielder, whereas for his craft, he's a winger, and that's what he does for Fulham. So he's been exceptional. And looking across the board to Egypt, Omar Mamouche and Mohamed Salah are both of the 2 players who are shouldering the responsibility of pushing Egypt to their 8th Afcon title. So both of them have played their part. I would love to equally mention a few other players who are showing capacity for their respective countries. You go to Morocco, Ayoub El Kabi, who has scored 2 overhead kick goals, which is incredible, isn't it? To have scored 2 of those incredible goals in the competition in just the group stage. I mean, you talk about Brahim Diaz scoring in their first 3 games of the group stage. That's another player to watch. Plays as a top club in Real Madrid. Maybe after this, he's going to stake a claim as a starting player for Real Madrid. That's left to be seen. If I have to go on to mention a couple of names here and there are a lot of them who are continuing to leave their mark on the sands of time as far as the 35th Africa Cup of Nations is concerned. That is what Afcon is all about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wisdom, there for your incisive look at the players by China. Is there any player that has come to your mind apart from the ones mentioned by Wisdom?
No, when he was mentioning those players, I was like saying, hey, these are the same names I have in my mind too. But there's this Hannibal fellow at Tunisia who was once on the books of Man United. Yes, it's not like he has wowed the crowd by scoring so many goals, but I've been watching him and I like what I see. He's young. Apart from Hannibal of Tunisia, I will agree with all the other picks. For Senegal, Sadio Mane has not done badly, even though his age is going on the other side. For Egypt, Mamouche and Salah. For Nigeria, similar names. So I don't think I'll have a different name for what we have mentioned already.
Okay, just generally, gentlemen, let's get over the overview of the entire first round games. And of course, the competition itself. We've seen top dignitaries, FIFA president, we've seen, of course, the CAF president out there. Looking at the 6th stadia that is in use, have you been satisfied with the attendance at those stadia? I start with you, China.
I think we'd like to make an issue of attendance. It's the Afcon, and at this stage, we won't have so many full stadia. It's like when the Club World Cup started last year, there was this media thing about empty stadia in some games, but at some point we saw full stadia. It's just like an Afcon game played in Nigeria, in say Port Harcourt, or anywhere in Nigeria, and it's a game between, let me just say, Tanzania and Sudan. How many people are going to watch it? So the fact they're going to pick their games, We saw games that had full crowd. Let's think about Morocco, who have the host country. We saw games that had full stadium. We saw games that had half full stadium. We also saw games that had almost empty stadium. It happened. But from this round, we are going to see, like I said, we're going to see more competitive games. We are going to see more evenly matched teams. And we're going to see more fans attending the game. So for the stadia issue, I wouldn't make such a meal of it. It happens most times. Even like FIFA World Cup, not every game will have full capacity. Not every game.
Okay.
There will be some games that will have, either half full or mid. It happens in football.
Okay, let me see. Do we still have Coach Dan by us? Dan Karpi, are you there? Okay, we seem to have lost Coach Dan, but I'll bring you in now, Mike. Looking at the football so far I've seen, have you seen a coaching impact, from the teams?
Definitely, I've seen a couple, right from the defending champion, talking about Emerson Faye of Cote d'Ivoire. You can see an end-to-end display between him and, of course, the coach for the Cameroonian side. Their last, in the second game, in their group game out there, was more like a, end-to-end encounter. I saw some technical prowess exhibited by both coaches, talking about Emerson Faye and the coach of, the Indomitable Lion. And then again, the coach of the Super Eagles as well, though some are not 100% satisfied, but then you cannot satisfy everybody. I see that, he seems to have some technical prowess and tactical, skills as well, because of some of the changes that I've seen him, exhibit so far. Then again, the coach of Morocco is another coach that we need to also watch out, because he reads the game carefully and makes a substitution as when due. These are the 3 or 4 coaches so far so good have been able to spot out their technical and tactical prowess. Okay,
gentlemen, just for 1 minute from each of you on the issue of coaching contributions to the 35th edition of African Cup of Nations. I get to you, Wisdom. Wisdom, are you seeing coaching prowess on showcase at the African Cup of Nations?
Thank you very much. First, let me acknowledge that for you to be a coach leading a team at the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, it means you have the capacity, you have the tactical nous, the prowess is there, the knowledge to lead a national team, because, it comes with enormous pressure. For you to be at this big stage, it's our own FIFA World Cup, isn't it? It's our Champions League, and every nation would want their best leg to be their best coaching crew to be out there. For this particular competition, I was impressed with the Egyptian coach, the fact that he played for Egypt and he's now leading the national team, Hossam Hassan, being there to midwife a win over a complete team. His team had a player sent off, Hani, in that game against South Africa, Ugo Bruce on the other side, being able to rally his troops, make a few defensive substitutions, ensuring they catch that one goal scored by Mohamed Salah. That's enterprising, isn't it? Keeping that scoreline, going on to win again with a player shot is fantastic. And if he's not a good coach, I mean, it's exciting to see people like late Stephen Keshi who did not just show their capacity on the pitch as a player, but now in management. So I'm impressed with Hossam Hassan. And Ugo Bruce is another man to look at. He's cut his teeth in terms of Afcon, won it with Cameroon in 2017, now leading South Africa, bringing resurgence here and there. And of course, there are teams to watch. I picked these two. I want to tilt away from Coach Emerick because he's made substitutions that impacted our game negatively. So instead of putting him on the spotlight, I beg to pass.
Well, okay, Chada, in the past, we've often had the comparison between local and foreign coaches. At the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations, is this still an issue? The visibility of local and foreign coaches?
It will always be an issue. Always been an issue. In the 68 years of the Afcon, 13 local coaches have won it. And out of those 13, 2 have stood out. Charles Pierre of Ghana, who won it 3 times. I think 1963, 1965, and 1982. Won it 3 times. Then, of course, there is Hassan Sheata of Egypt, who also won it 3 times. But for the foreign coaches, one has stood out completely, and that is Hervé Renard, who is the first and only coach to have won it for 2 countries, for Zambia and Cote d'Ivoire. But every time that coach is mentioned, they always do that thing: is it going to be won by a foreign coach or a local coach? And I mean, I understand why this happens. Already, some people will be counting of the 16 teams left, how many are coached by local indigenous coaches, how many are coached by foreign coaches. We do this every year. But for me, it's not about whether you're indigenous or you're foreign. It's about what you have to offer to the team. Like Hossam Hassan was mentioned just now, he's doing quite a great job with his national team, and he's an indigenous coach. Even though Hugo Bruce had also been mentioned as a coach that is doing well, it's difficult to mention any coach from South Africa as doing particularly well or his coaching acumen. And this is my own view. Because the South Africans have a very good football philosophy in most of their players coming from the home league, it makes the job easier. They play the same way. I mean, they are well coordinated. So I'm not taking anything from Hugo Bruce. I'm saying that the fact that he's coaching the South African team and have a good football philosophy and a good football foundation, it makes life easier for any coach that coaches South Africa. But having said that, he is also doing well. And I also agree that we can't mention the Nigerian coach Ecuele because his decisions have been crazy. And I insist, anybody or most Nigerians can name a Super Eagles starting lineup. If you ask 50 Nigerians to mention who they think will start the next game, maybe 30 will get it right, or 40 will get it right. So it's not about naming the lineup, it's about how do you manage the lineup, how do you create the right tactics, the right formation, how do you make your substitutions right, and that's where our coach gets it wrong. So I wouldn't mention him in this list. But again, whether it's foreign or it's indigenous, the coach is there for a job and it's to win the Afcon.